Welcome to the Tiger's Den. I am the voice of Cheryl, and of course, I'm Toothless Tiger. Today should be a beautiful day, and I'm glad that everyone is here. We have a very, very special guest. He's on his way. Remember, he's an esquire, but he's on his way. He's going to share with us today his level of expertise in estate planning. That is the type of attorney that he is. And he will be able to explain a few things for us. I want to tell you about this young man. I knew him when he was a young tot, and he grew up to be a fine representative of his family, his community, and the public at large. And I'm very honored to be able to bring him to you today. And I would like to remind you that he practices in the state of Texas. So he will be talking about general law, and it will be more applicable to the state of Texas. But remember, each state has its own laws that falls under their constitution. So he will be answering basically general questions as he explained what he does. He does not answer any specific questions because he's bound by law and a code of ethics. If he is not your attorney, then he cannot give legal advice, even though he's a Juris Doctorate. Again, they're bound by ethics, honor, and integrity, and a code of conduct. So if anybody may have a question or two, feel free to ask a general question, um, in the chat. And then remember that it has to apply to the laws of your state. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. Okay. Said give him a second, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you a little bit about him so that you'll know who our guest is. And his name, L.D. Thomas Esquire. He is a Dallas native. He received his bachelor's degree in international relations, business, and economics from the University of North Texas, and his master's degree in public administration from the University of Texas at Arlington. He received his Juris Doctorate degree as part of the inaugural class of the University of North Texas College of Law. Mr. Thomas works as a solo practitioner in Dallas, Texas. His practice focuses on the areas of estate planning, probate, real estate, and small business. In 2020, the law office of L.D. Thomas, PLLC, was named the best law firm in Black Dallas by the Dallas Weekly newspaper. And that is quite an honor. So he's working on it. He's having a few technical difficulties, as we always do. So that will give me more time because we know with attorneys, time is money. And so we didn't want to waste any of his time. And so when he get here, we're going to be excited about it. I want to say salute to everybody that's here. Maria S., salute. Laura All Smiles, salute. M. Mac, salute. Wilma Flagstaff, salute. Let me see, who have I missed? Tanae, salute. Cookie, salute. It's your world. Ernest Jones, salute. Carolyn Jones, salute. Carolyn, you rolled right past me. Salute. Yeah, he's having technical difficulties, and we all know what that's like. Trayvon won. Salute. But I'm a little old head, and so the youngsters know all about this technology. And if it doesn't work one way, it'll work another. And I see him in the background. So, with no further ado, since I've introduced him, here I present to you L.D. Thomas, Esquire. Please, as we would say, welcome him. Drop them teeth down to welcome him. Hello, LD.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you beautifully. Glad
Fantastic.
to have you. Glad to have you.
We're
I've
gonna do
already given you your beautiful accolades
it.
on your background, and I was explaining to them how we know that you youngsters kind of know a little bit about technology.
But clearly not enough because we're on the cell phone today. So this is going to be a real intimate conversation. I was having issues with my Mac, and then I tried my iPad, and sometimes technology can be a help, and sometimes it can be a hindrance. But we
Yes,
got to figure it out, and that's the most important thing. So
that's beautiful. Well, I've already explained to everybody that, where your practice of law is, how you practice in the state of Texas, because we have people all over the world. And
mhm.
so if they may have questions, their questions will be applicable to the laws of their state.
Correct.
Let them know that you don't answer specific questions because you're duty bound by ethics and a code of conduct. If
Yeah.
you're not their attorney, you can't give legal advice. So I've already shared all of the good stuff.
I appreciate that disclaimer. I really do. I really do.
Yes. Yeah, we learn about disclaimers real early in life.
Yes, we do.
And
Yes, we
for those of us who don't, they're in trouble.
do. If you didn't find out then, you'll find out now. That's for sure.
Sure.
But
So
let's keep on living.
see, ain't that what we used to tell y'all?
Just keep on living. Y'all right, y'all.
So I know you got that from your grandmother or your granddaddy.
Yeah.
Because
Both of
you didn't know that statement. Because that's one we got from our parents.
them.
Keep on living. Just keep on living.
Just keep
You
on.
don't see it today, you'll see it tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Keep living. Okay. So we have enough people in here for us to start our beautiful interview. And so, LD, could you tell us what is estate planning?
Estate planning is essential. Well, it's a primary thing that everybody needs. Let me just start off with that. Whatever the definition is that I'm about to give you, know that you'll need it. Estate planning, in and of itself, is the process of planning for the inevitable and the unexpected. Okay. Well, what do you mean by that? Most people are going to pass away. Not me. I plan on being changed in a twinkling of an eye. But everybody else will probably pass away. And so we need to make a plan for that, right? And how will you transition your assets to your loved ones, or liked ones, because not your family members and loved ones, because not all your family members are loved ones.
Tell the truth.
But even more so than that, because that's what most people think about is, hey, when I die, this is what happens. Estate planning also deals with end of life care and twilight care, right? So before you pass away, we can incorporate into your plan things such as Medicare planning, planning for nursing homes. Uh, I have some people that I can refer to for like retirement services and things like that. So estate planning looks at your assets, looks at everything that you own, and just kind of plans out the next few phases and stages of your life and the end of your life, whatever those stages may be.
Okay. That sounds like a good answer. Now, let me ask you, what is probate? And I'd like to know, what is the difference between probate and non probate asset?
Okay. That was an excellent question. So everybody hears probate, especially when I have clients come to me that are doing estate planning and they're taking the proper steps to look to the future and say, hey, I need to get a plan together, LD.
Mhm.
And I need to do something to avoid probate. And so people have heard this word probate, and it has this mysterious connotation to it, and it's big and scary, and people just say it's expensive. Or so, but what is it? The process of probate, the probate is a court proceeding to simply transfer your assets or the assets of someone who's passed away to either their heirs if they didn't have a will, or to the people of their choosing if they did have a will. Okay.
Okay.
So it's simply that court proceeding to transfer ownership rights of property of a deceased individual to the appropriate persons. It also is the process in which that person's estate is settled up, right? Because sometimes we leave, not only do we leave things behind, sometimes we leave debts behind. So probate is also that process of making sure all of your debts and bills, and if anyone owes you any money or your estate any money, make sure that's collected, and then also dispersing of those assets, right? So that's probate. One thing I like to point out, a will has to be probated, right? People say, oh, we need to go probate the will, probate the will, I need to probate the will. Even if you don't have a will, the process still goes through probate court. Now, the process is called a determination of heirship. So if you have a will, if the person dies with the will, you probate that will.
Okay.
If they don't have a will, you have to go through a court proceeding called a determination of heirship. But both of those happen in the probate court. Okay.
Okay.
So both of those happen in the probate court. A probate asset and a non-probate asset. That's an excellent, excellent question, because that determines a lot about how things will work.
Okay.
And your assets are divided into those two categories. A probate asset are things like your house or anything that doesn't have a beneficiary attached to it.
Okay.
So a non-probate asset, things like insurance policies or 401ks. If there's a beneficiary listed, then it doesn't have to go through the court proceeding to see who the proper owner will be, because it's listed that way.
Okay.
So if there's a beneficiary, it doesn't have to go through probate, so it's considered a non-probate asset. There are tools that are at people's disposal to change traditional probate assets, like your home, into a non-probate asset, such as a transfer on death deed or else, and that may bubble up later, but there's a certain deed in the state of Texas where you fill it out, sign it, and you file it with the county, and it says, hey, when I pass away, I want my house to go to this person. And then when that time comes, that person simply takes the death certificate to the county and it transfers over. So it's almost like leaving a beneficiary. So you're able to transfer that home outside of the probate court process.
Okay.
Yeah. So if there's a beneficiary listed, it's a non-probate asset. If there's not a beneficiary listed, then it is a probate asset, and we have to go through the probate process.
That's good. Let me just ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, or would it be safe to say, I don't want to say do you think, would it be safe to say that there are certain laws that apply to all 50 states under the U.S. code, but it could be just a little different under the state? Would that be safe to say?
So the laws, I understand the question. So the laws do work to a certain degree, right? So if you look at, say, the federal tax exemption, okay. So people start saying, well, am I going to leave my family with a huge tax bill? So the taxes that you have to pay on an estate when someone passes away, that's obviously regulated by the federal government, because that's taxes. So that is something that's kind of overreaching, okay? However, probate and estate planning, those laws do vary from state to state. So everything is kind of state specific when you start getting down to how things are divided up, what the laws of intestacy are, what you can and can't leave to certain people, how documents need to be drafted in order for them to be effective in your state, those sorts of things.
Okay.
But there are some things, like I said, like the federal tax exemption, which I think right now is at 12 million or around 12 million.
Okay.
That's something that applies across state lines. So there are some aspects that do blanketly apply to everyone.
Okay. That sounds good. Okay. And my next question would be, when I pass away, can the person that I designated as my power of attorney make all necessary decisions for my assets and estates?
Um, the answer is unfortunately no, and I've run into that quite a bit, and people are they're getting powers of attorney, which I do highly recommend. Right, they're great tools for when you're here in case you're incapacitated and you can't make decisions or carry out business. What that does is that says that, hey, I'm here and this person can work on my behalf. What people fail to realize with the power of attorney, and this is pretty much across the board, is that authority ceases to exist the moment that that person passes away. So that authority that is granted under the power of attorney dies when the person who's granted it dies. So if that person passes away, that power of attorney that gave you that authority is null and void. And I've seen quite a few times. I actually had a conversation with a banker today about how many times people go to a bank with power of attorney after someone has passed away and say, hey, I was a power of attorney, I need to close this. And the bank is not going to allow you to do that because that power of attorney is no longer valid and it no longer works the minute that person passes away.
Is that true also for the statutory power of attorney?
Yeah.
Both.
So for both of them. So the durable power of attorney, so a statutory power of attorney is just kind of that form, right? Most people, if you work with an attorney, what they're going to give you is a durable power of attorney.
Mm-hmm.
The durable means, because a lot of times the power of attorney, well, not a lot of times, in the beginning, the power of attorney was only good until a person was incapacitated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So now when you have a durable, it's saying it's going to exist through the duration of the incapacity as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Okay.
So you want to make sure that you have a durable power of attorney. And it's still a statutory durable power of attorney. And so what that simply means is this pretty much fits the statutory code.
Okay.
All of those powers of attorney, however, all of them cease to have any authority the moment that person passes away.
Okay. That is really something good to know.
Yeah. And it's surprising that a lot of people don't know that.
Yes.
That a lot of people don't know that. And it's kind of heartbreaking because I have a lot of people trying to close out mom or dad or uncle's stuff. And they, that individual trusted them to handle all of that stuff. And they say, okay, well, they're gone. Let me wrap their stuff up. And they don't understand it. It's a much more involved process at that point.
I think a lot of us don't know that we should have, like, it's the example you just gave with everybody, handling their parents' stuff and whatever. And for some reason, they choose not to. They want them to still have some independence, so they don't get on their bank account because, they want them to feel like they can handle it. But what I found that they don't know is that once they do transition, if they're not on that bank account, then it's very hard to, get those funds. And so I think that a lot of people, because we are who we are as a people, we're afraid to even discuss that beginning statement that you made. But one day we're all going to go. I'm like you. I'm going to go at 104. So I'm going to be at 104 like my grandmother. But, people really don't realize how you really need to have the conversation. Now, you know how they always say, have the conversation. That to me is a conversation you should have.
I agree 100%. And I will tell you, I try to use humor, believe it or not, right? In my line of work, to get people to have that conversation because it is uncomfortable. And I tell you, when my clients come to me and say, hey, I've been thinking about this and I want to do it, I congratulate them because I understand it's a step. It's we have mental roadblocks. Nobody wants to think about it, right? But the other part about that and the other side of that is once we get the estate plan together, once we sign the docs, there is a sense of relief,
Mm.
sense of accomplishment. You know, you have that nagging thing on your task list, and it's just there.
Mm-hmm.
I have had clients that pop champagne when we were done because like they know they need to do it, but nobody wants to talk about it. But I tell you, it's honestly, it's part of being adults. It's part of having insurance,
Mm-hmm.
part of taking care of that because we don't know. And I tell everybody, it does not change your number in line. It doesn't move you any closer to the date. It's just, if anything, it prolongs it because you don't have that one thing that's still stressing you out, or you're concerned about what will happen to my family if something happened to me, and with
Mm-hmm.
fighting and that sort of thing. So, but it is a hard conversation for a lot of
Yeah.
people to have. And so I try, on some of my social media posts, I try to use humor to crack open that door, um,
Fantastic.
to get people to start having that talk.
Yeah, I think that's great. And humor always worked for us.
Yeah.
Growing up, no matter what it was, we always made fun of everything. That was kind of a way for us to, I guess, because we couldn't afford a lot. So that was entertainment for us.
Yeah.
And so, it really does help. And, what they say about laughter, medicine to the bone. So, yeah. So another question. If I'm married, doesn't everything automatically go to my spouse?
No.
I love this part.
No, 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 no. A lot of people make that assumption.
Yes.
And I'll be honest with you, there are certain situations where that is the case.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of situations where that is not the case. Some of the factors that determine that is one, your family structure. Okay. So you're
Mm-hmm.
married. Is this your second marriage? Is this a blended family? Do you have other children? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of this particular union. And this is 2022. Most families at this point are blended, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or second or third marriages. And so now this is in the state of Texas. Okay. So I want to put this disclaimer, but this is something for people to look into and have a conversation with an attorney in your state about.
Exactly.
Simply ask them what would happen with myself if I passed away. So one, we have to decide. We have to determine the type of property it is.
Mm-hmm.
Is it separate property or is it community property? Okay.
Mm.
Um, I'll give you an example of what would happen to community property if an individual was married. Okay, so if it was so you guys bought a house, got married, bought the house together in Texas, that would be considered community property. Okay. If mom passes away
Mm-hmm.
and all of the children were between mom and dad,
Mm-hmm.
then all of the community property would go to dad. Okay.
Okay.
The thought process behind that is, well, everybody, you'd probably want everything to go to dad, then dad would give everything to the kids. That's the theory. That it doesn't always happen, but that's what the state figures. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, same scenario, but it's a blended family, and mom had one or two kids before she got with dad. In that scenario, dad does not get any of mom's portion of the community estate
Mm.
house. He would maintain his 50%,
Okay.
and then the kids that they had together and the kids that she had prior to would then split her community property.
Okay.
So all depends on the scenario and the family makeup. I've seen situations where now there's also a situation where if it was separate property,
Okay.
say it was separate property, say husband owned house before he got with wife.
Mm-hmm.
So it was his separate property. Husband and wife get married. They don't have any kids. Okay. Well, you say, well, everything goes to the wife. No, it does not.
Mm.
The wife would get 50% ownership, and then if he had a living parent, they'd get some. If they had brother and sisters, siblings, they get some. So you could find yourself in a situation where wife, mother-in-law, and sister-in-law now all own a house together.
Isn't that something?
Oh, it is. It is
It
very
gets
much.
sticky.
It gets very sticky, and all of that, all of those what if situations, could easily be avoided by simply having a will and saying, I actually leave everything to my wife, or I actually leave everything to my husband, or I do leave everything to my children, and
Hmm.
to share this portion, this home in conjunction.
So
Uh,
I'm going to take a moment, right quick. What we do here in YouTube land, when
mhm.
our chat comes in, we take a moment to acknowledge them because we are happy that they're joining us. Anyone that
Okay.
speaks in the chat. So I want to say salute to Carlos Franklin. Just the ones I haven't saluted already. We had a couple that come in. Meaty, I don't know how to, is that Riley? I'm going to say that's Meaty Riley, but I don't know if that's Meaty Riley or not, but that's what I'm going to say. Let me know if it's correct or not, okay? And then C. Roberts, I want to say salute. Uncle Shug, I want to say salute. My dear Deborah, I want to say salute. I have a lot of new nieces and nephews now. So, Gotti, I want to say salute. So yeah, I have to acknowledge them because what they do is they oftentimes, they will help us by doing super chats or they will do cash apps or just them being present. And if we have enough people, we can get out there so that people can see our interview. And that's what we base it on. So we kind of build families in our little YouTube community. But community, going back to that, are all states
Uh-oh.
community property states?
No, they're not. No, no. And so
Okay.
again, that's why it's important to look at
Your state.
what the law, speak to an attorney in your state, right?
Yes.
Because those things make a difference to how all of that would play out.
But believe it or not, I put in the description for them to look in their state
Yeah.
on the things that you're talking about. And then I even told them, child, I can mess up some. So I don't know what I did, but I just did some. I'm trying to just get I always prepare. So I'm trying to get my questions back up here. But I have two screens. And I know nothing about technology. I hate
You got me.
technology.
Listen, you got me beat because the StreamYard was something new for me, and I think that's what threw my little setup off. So this is something that I have been educated on today. So thank you for that.
Well,
Um,
that's good.
but I want to say this to everyone out there in the audience who may be joining us from different states, because people say, well, where do I find an attorney? Honestly, one of the great places to start, if you don't know an attorney who can recommend an estate planning attorney, is to go to your state bar website. The majority of state bar websites have a search feature where you can search for this type of attorney in your city. But obviously every attorney has to be barred by the state. So that's that major database where you can go. So if you're in Virginia and you need an attorney in Virginia and you don't have anyone in your network, you can definitely go to the Virginia State Bar website. Type in, I'm looking for a state planning attorney in whatever city or province you're in, and kind of narrow that down.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, we really need to hear this because we're often afraid. Do you have something open? Like, do you have another
Another
web
app?
browser open or something? Like, do
I
you have
don't.
YouTube open?
I don't. Is it giving you some feedback or
Yeah,
something?
I got a little feedback, and I don't know.
It might be the way I'm holding the phone. Let me see. Is that any
Okay,
better?
yeah, that
Okay.
sounds good.
Yeah, I think
Okay,
it might be the way I was holding the phone.
that sounds real good. Okay, and so that's really good for us to get to hear this from someone. This is actually your level of expertise. You're not the ambulance chaser, and you don't go over and try to be the dog catcher. This is specifically what you went to school for and what you dedicate your life to.
Yes, this is, it's interesting. And I will correct you. I went to law school, but I actually hated I hated this class in law school.
Okay.
Wills, probate, and trust. One, and I think you know this, I went to law school at night. So I worked a full-time job, a full-time corporate job, and then 4 nights out of the week was in law school. And so I think my wills, trust, and estate class was at about 8:30 or
Mm.
8:30 at night.
Okay.
And I just was over it. I was like, I'm not doing that. I don't want to do that. I'm never gonna do that. I just need to get through this class so I can move on. And we make plans and God laughs.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened is when I opened up my practice and I started my practice, I was still working my corporate job. And
Mm.
so I looked for an area of the law that I had a little bit more flexibility, right? And I felt, well, I can't do criminal law because if somebody goes to jail, I can't tell them I can't come get them out because I got a marketing meeting with my director. That's not going to work. But I figured, with estate planning, that's something I can do in the evenings, after work, and on the weekends.
Mm-hmm.
And I got my feet wet in it, for lack of a better term, and it did ultimately become a passion of mine.
Oh,
And
isn't that
it
beautiful?
is my primary focus, because I do see the need,
Mm-hmm.
and I see it's almost like a type of ministry for me,
Okay.
to be able to help families when they find themselves in probably some of the most darkest, confusing, and scariest times of their life. Let's be
Mm-hmm.
honest. If you've lost a loved one, people are calling. You don't know what to do. Bills are piling up. There may be infighting in the family. We don't
Mm-hmm.
know what's going to happen with grandmama's house. And so to be able to help people through and navigate through the court system, it's very rewarding on a spiritual level for me. Uh,
Fantastic.
but also to be able to educate people before that happens and say, hey, here are things that we can do to make this easier on you, your loved ones, and everyone else. And to sound that alarm, it's just it got a hold of me and wouldn't let me go, as they say.
That's good. So then my next question would be, do I need to hire an attorney for probate or will?
For probate or will. So that's, believe it or not, that's actually two questions.
It is. And really my question is to probate a will.
To
That was my
probate a
question.
will.
Yeah, and I
In
did break that up into two questions. I'm sorry
Yes,
about that.
that's okay. But I don't know if you can tell I like to talk.
Yeah, you know I do too, so we fine. Let
So
me
in
just say
the
salute to OD the Great. Andre, salute. Okay.
All right. So, as far as in order to probate a will in the state of Texas,
Mm-hmm.
yes, you have to hire an attorney. And the reason is, and the thought process that people say, well, hey, don't I have the right to represent myself in the court of law, so on and so forth? The state of Texas looks at probate a little differently, because when you probate a will, you're not just dealing with your assets. You're not just dealing with your interest. You're dealing with the interest of another person, the decedent's estate. There may be other beneficiaries who are affected by your actions. So the state of Texas says, since you're not exactly just simply representing yourself, you do need to hire an attorney to probate a will in the state of Texas. Now, for the other part of the question, as far as drafting a will, it's not a requirement that you hire an attorney, but it is highly, highly, highly recommended, because there are nuances, there are phrases, there are terms, there are conditions, and there's experience to make sure that that will is drafted appropriately so that it does stand up in court. But there are provisions for people to uh, do their own holographic will, which is a handwritten will. But even that has to be done a certain way in order for it to be deemed valid. Uh-oh, did I lose you? Can you hear me?
No, I had to make a call. Someone
Okay.
thought that maybe we were not on. So
Okay.
I had to make a call to make sure that the people that I know, and it looks like everybody is engaging. So I just wanted to make sure we wouldn't want to have this beautiful interview and we're just beautifully
I'll do it
speaking with
again.
ourselves.
You know I'll do it all over again.
Yes, and I would greatly appreciate that. Okay, now let me just say this. if I would say, honestly, I don't care what happens to my assets when I die. Just let my family fight it out. So I don't need an estate plan, right?
First of all, you know what? That is now that's funny. That's funny. Um, that I would say you do need an estate plan, and it harkens back to one of the things that I said in the beginning. Estate planning isn't just what happens when you pass away.
Mm-hmm.
It's also planning for some things that may happen while you're still here, right?
Okay.
So having that power of attorney say that affects you while you're still here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I saw situations where people have been in car accidents, they've been in comas, they've come out of them, they've had all types of health care issues,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't have a power of attorney, or they didn't have a medical power of attorney or a durable power of attorney. And they come out and their affairs are in a mess.
Mm.
Doing that, right, having those power of attorneys and doing some of those pre-planning things, those are things that could come into play while you're still living.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're still here and you come out of this coma or you come out of the hospital and your stuff's in a mess, you very much care, right? And a lot of that could have been taken care of with an estate plan. So yes, most people think an estate plan is what happens with myself when I die, and that is a huge portion of it. But there are also things that we do, like I said, for end of life care, incapacity planning,
Mm-hmm.
that do make a difference. Uh, Helping to decide which child or which loved one or which individual, if you don't even have children, or if you have a friend or whatever who's going to care for you if something were to happen to you, that stuff affects you while you're still here. And
Okay.
those are things that we can talk about and make a prominent part of an estate plan.
Okay.
And then we can still set it up. They'll be mad. Hey, if you still want to watch your family fight when you're gone, we 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 can kind of set it up for that too. But there are some things that we need to do to make sure that you're comfortable as long as you're here.
Do you find that these type cases can get to be expensive? Kind of like when the person is going through the divorce and it start
Mm-hmm.
out, the attorney tell you, well, it's going to be this amount. And then, something happens and before you know it, have you
Yes,
seen fights, or,
I have.
family feuds
I
where,
I
people
I
think they're going to
have.
walk away with something and it all end up going
I
to you
have.
guys?
Well, it didn't go to me. It didn't all go to me.
So it don't
But
always go to the attorney because that's the assumption and that's what we all think.
what?
Nobody
Right.
wins but the attorneys.
Well, but there's parts there is some truth to that, and I'll
Okay.
tell you why and how. But you're absolutely correct. Jay-Z, one of my favorite rappers, he has
Okay.
a line in his song. He says, "Nobody wins when the family feuds." Okay,
Okay. That's true. That's a
and
good one.
and your analogy of family law cases is very similar. It's so funny, and yes, I've seen fighting. One of the things that kind of pushed me to this was I knew I didn't want to do family law because I didn't want to deal with the drama.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's all laugh. Let's all laugh together. I'm still dealing
Yeah.
with the drama. But but what happens is if you
Mm-hmm.
sit down with an attorney, you draft a will
Mm-hmm.
that's properly executed, everything's set up the way it's supposed to be. The process is much smoother. A lot of probate attorneys, for the most part, if it has to go through probate, we charge by the hour
Okay.
because we don't. There are so many things that we don't know. Okay, is
Okay.
this going to be challenged? Is that sort of thing? But a properly executed original will makes the process and the court process so much smoother. Okay.
Okay.
Now, if you don't have a will, not only can people come in and contest and do this, because somebody could even contest the will, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if somebody contests the will and start fighting, then our fees do go up because that's more work. Those are more
Okay.
hours. But not having a will, automatically puts you behind the 8 ball as far as saving money. Okay.
Okay.
So we talked about if there is a will, you probate the will, you go forward. If there isn't a will in the state of Texas, the process is called a determination of heirship,
Okay.
where the court has to do their own research and say, we have gone through this and we determined that these are the heirs of the decedent. Okay.
Is that where the court can possibly order a guardian ad litem or hire a guardian ad litem? Before you answer that, let me just say, salute, King Kush. Welcome aboard. Yeah, is that, kind of at that stage, kind of like when the court would do that?
So it's an attorney ad litem,
Okay.
not a guardian
The
ad litem.
guardian is for the children, and the attorney would be for the estate.
Right.
Okay.
So a guardian ad litem is an individual who manages the estate for someone who is incapacitated.
Incapacitated children.
Okay, so that's a guardianship thing.
The whole thing. Okay.
So the attorney ad litem in this particular scenario, their job is, as funny as this sounds, is to represent the interest of unknown heirs.
Okay.
So their job is to go out and make sure this person didn't have any more kids. Mm-hmm. They didn't have any marriages that were not dissolved, that anybody isn't being left out. Okay. Now, this is why this automatically puts you behind the 8 ball as far as saving money. You have to pay for that extra attorney. And for most, it's at minimum a $500 fee. Okay. A lot of the expenses are court fees. Sometimes when I bill my clients and I send them their invoice, the majority of the money that's coming are fees that they're being paid. It's court fees, posting fees,
going back to the state.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fees do add up. All of that is avoided if you had a will. You wouldn't do a determination of heirship. There wouldn't be a necessity for an ad litem attorney. All of that can be avoided if you had a will. So depending on the situation, yeah. And so when people fight, though, if a will isn't properly drafted, I've seen situations where someone tried to do it themselves and they only put one executor. Okay. Well, unfortunately, that executor passed away before this person did. So the family had to decide, well, who's going to be the executor? There were second wives, there were stepkids, and there were people who just didn't get along. And it became a power struggle going back and forth, and the calls back and forth. And it honestly ate up unnecessary fees.
And they don't understand that.
They didn't care.
Really? Right? They hated each other that much?
Yeah. Sometimes, I mean, we've seen people, it becomes the principle of the thing. They have a long-standing grudge against this person and they refuse. And I try to be the person to say, hey, listen, I'm trying to keep y'all from eating up the money. But, some people are grieving, and people fight and they do all these sorts of things. So
they grieve in different ways, and some is anger.
Correct.
Yeah. Let me just say hello to Dr. Calvin Green. Salute, Dr. Green.
My buddy Calvin Green.
Well, Calvin Green is in the house. Okay, so you were ending that.
Yeah. So setting your family up to fight is setting up attorneys to make a lot of money, because if they're charging you by the hour when you call and you complain and you send emails and they have to draft more documents and draft this motion and draft a restraining order here and draft it, and then they have to file it, there's a court fees, it can rack up. So setting up a program and a plan for easy, smooth transition benefits everyone.
I think that this, to me, is one of the things that is a disservice to us, whereas you and Bill had an opportunity to go to Law Magnet, and I call Greg Bill.
Yes.
You had an opportunity, so you kind of got it in your learning at that stage. But it should be, just the simplest of things
Mm-hmm.
to teach the children in school so that the parents don't have it, but they could share it with the parents.
Correct.
Because, we are so, I don't know, you could call us superstitious, you could call us holy rollers, you could call us whatever you want to call us. But whatever we are, we're so stuck in that lane and we're not open. And these things are very vital because I found myself in that situation
Yeah.
where you have my dad married a woman, and that she had two children, and my dad died before she did, so they just assumed that this is their mom's house, and
Yeah.
then they went and got a. Now she didn't have a will when we went to court, and we didn't go to probate.
Mm-hmm.
Another attorney led me another way. And so
Uh-huh.
I went that way. We went to have whoever was living there evicted. And
Okay.
then the people said, the judge that we went before said, the only two people she could talk to, they not here. They're deceased. So you all have to go to the probate,
To the pro.
and the home is not worth a lot. And then we don't all have money. And so you just know that we all are heirs. And then you look up one day and now they've come up with some document well after their mom died. Now the house is in their name and stuff. So you can see how
It,
crazy this can get. And
it,
right now it hasn't been a problem. But with the gentrification that's going on in the city,
and
and
the price and value of real estate
yes,
skyrocketing. Yeah.
yeah. So, it will just behoove us to have just a little knowledge, not to practice, but to be able to have the questions and go to the attorney to ask the right questions.
Well, and that's why I want to give a big shout out to you. I want to
Thank
give a shout
you.
out to Calvin Green because he has his own show as well,
Oh,
and,
that's great.
and he has promoted. But like you guys are doing an amazing service to the community by helping put this information out to the masses because it's not taught in schools and people do shy away from it. So it takes, honestly, leaders like you to do these types of shows, get the word out, and demystify the scariness of it, and just have a conversation, and get people to start having the talk. So thank you for doing this and sharing this with the world.
Thank you so very much. And we're getting ready to wind down because one thing I know with you in your position, time is money.
But
And you
you
gave,
got a special place.
okay, thank you. And you gave of your time to me. And I want to say I appreciate that. But I cannot let you leave the stage without you doing a little, just a teeny weeny,
Uh-huh.
bragging about your beginning. I know you get a lot of your drive from your grandfather.
I
A lot
do.
of people don't know
I
that
do.
he was here in the city of Dallas, our Martin Luther King. And what you don't know is one year, when I first accepted myself being overweight after having
Mhm.
Greg, I came up with this idea and it was called Fashion in the Round.
Okay.
And so I would give big girl fashion shows.
Okay.
And his birthday was approaching. And there was a real famous club, and the owner name was Magruder. And they were giving him a birthday party.
What was the
And
name of the club?
I can't remember, but
Cause
it
that
was
name.
right here in Oak Cliff, Texas.
Okay,
It
cause
was
that
like,
name.
you know
Magruder.
the Magruders, because Vicky
Yeah.
Magruder, she used to do the hair and
Yeah.
drove the Rolls Royce in the hood. Yeah, but Magruder was, I can't think of that club, and it was a very famous club.
Okay.
But they were having a birthday party, and I put on a fashion show. He allowed me to put on a fashion show for his birthday
Oh,
celebration.
that is
And that
awesome.
really happened, but I just can't let you leave this stage. I've
Uh-huh.
had the district clerk on here, Felicia Petrie.
Okay.
I've had the county clerk, John Warren, and so I cannot have an attorney that practice and they handle the paperwork for you guys
They
without
do.
without you pumping up just a little bit before we go, because we're about to go. I really try to keep this show to an hour, and like I say, with you giving us your time, I definitely want to respect it. But I just want you to just give a little history about Al Lipscomb, and now we have a street named after him,
We
and
do.
what inspired you to go and fight the way you fight. with a smile and a joke.
Oh, bless your heart. We do. It was Grand Avenue in East Dallas, and they've
Hmm.
renamed it Al Lipscomb Way, right? And I think that
Yes,
that is so appropriate because he had a way about himself,
yes,
had a way of thinking, and he had a way of dealing with people that is second to none. I've never seen it replicated. I mean, um, he was an inspiration to me.
hmm,
He was so influential with me, not just as my grandfather, but honestly as a mentor.
okay,
To see and be with him when he was at City Hall and watch him interact with people. One of the stories that I tell most often,
hmm.
God loved him, man. He had me drive him everywhere. And he had my cousin drive him, man. Anybody who had a car would drive him anywhere. But one particular day, I remember we were at the Martin Luther King. We started off at the Martin Luther King Center,
Okay.
and I think we were handing out sandwiches or lunch kits or stuff to to less fortunate. And he knew everybody, because he had done work in the community long before I even got there. I mean, long
Yes.
before I was born, right? The South
Hmm.
Dallas Information Center and so much, and fighting for racial equality, not only racial equality for sure, but also just poor people and just
Just
and
poor people.
taxation without representation. I learned more
Hmm.
about taxation uh, without representation from him than I did in the schools, because he
Okay.
fought for to change the makeup of the city council in the single member districts, and
Hmm.
he ran for mayor and forced a runoff, and he broke down so many
Trailblazer.
trailblazer, broke down so many barriers. And so he's very well known. So I just watched how he interacted with people, and his memory was amazing.
Yes.
People would, oh yeah, I remember you from 7 years ago. But so we started out that morning at the MLK Center, handing out lunches, and then we had to go to. Then it was the mayor was Annette Strauss. I don't know if you remember Annette
I
Strauss,
do.
mayor. And we went to her house, and when I tell you this was the biggest, most palatial house I'd ever, it was really like something off of TV, right?
Mhm.
Like at that
Okay.
time, this woman had maids with the white aprons on. They got me some fresh cookies and fresh lemonade. It was a thing. But what I remember most about that day was he treated the people at the MLK Center and the mayor, who was obviously a very rich woman at the time, the
Mhm.
exact same. Showed
Yes.
everyone the exact same amount of respect, the exact same amount of courtesy. His smile was just as big with the people in South Dallas as it was the people in Highland Park,
Yes, it
and
was.
and he was that type of person, right? But he also you couldn't sell him any wooden nickels. He wasn't taking any wooden nickels. He spoke his mind. He was adamant. He cared about the people. He cared about the the plight of people and trying um, to better people's lives. And I think a lot of that, I find myself doing that. That's why I said this is kind of a ministry for me,
Okay.
because it's kind of a way for me to help people, obviously on a much smaller scale,
Hmm.
but to some people, that's their whole world, right? Their whole world has come crumbling down, and it's an opportunity for me to minister to people the way that he ministered to the city and beyond. So his influence is felt on me daily.
That's
Absolutely.
beautiful. Yeah, I just wanted the world to hear that story because we here in Dallas, we call him our hero. So, and then like I said, I had the opportunity to actually know him and even to, meet your grandmother and,
Oh,
so that was just a
she's
beautiful
up
thing.
there.
That,
I don't
that
know what
was
this thing is. I got she's there. She is. There's my grandmother.
okay.
That's my grandmother, and that's my mother in those pictures right there. So
Okay. Yeah.
they keep me in check. And I want to say this because I think I would be remiss because I just painted this real nice picture of him, and he is a nice guy, but he was a fighter,
Yes.
right? There are stories of him. There were people living in squalor, and the city was doing nothing. So he took a box of roaches and let them out at City Hall and asked people, "How would you like to live with that?" So let me be very clear. Let me be very clear.
He was
He
the man.
was he was a character, and he stood up and he was a fighter. And I've never been anyone like him. He had a certain way about himself, that's for sure. And I thank God
Yes.
for him every day.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So on that note, I didn't see any questions, and we're reaching the hour. We're like 5 minutes into the hour. So I would say if there are no questions, no, and remember, if you have one question, it is not specific because he practiced in the state of Texas, but he can just answer a question to the
Yeah.
best of his ability. If anybody has a question, please put it in the chat because we're going to get ready to let Mr. Thomas Esquire finish his day because I know he's been busy all day.
It's
And
been a crazy day.
again, I cannot thank you enough for coming and spending this time with me. Tanya G, salute. Glad you made it. We're almost gone, but you made it, and that's all that matters. And you can look at the playback, and this is some very good information. So I hope you use your pens and pencils and take some notes. And then go, I put in the description. If you would look at probate, I'd put in there, and estate planning and real estate and property goes together kind of. And
It
so
does
I
the
just
legal
put
law.
look up those laws for your state. And not that you're trying to practice law, but it is always good to know. Like I tell y'all all the time, law begins and ends with you. So you need to know, and that's what it's all about. I don't practice and I don't give advice, but I do study and I do research and I do share.
And you
And
keep me
so
on
I
my
share.
toes.
Yeah, 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 because you do know we still in the fight, right?
I know it. I know it.
Almost 5 years going.
I know it. I
Right
know
now,
it.
we're waiting to hear from actually the district court because we wanted to appeal, but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know the most powerful tool was the affidavit.
Mm.
And so I didn't tell her to do that, and she didn't do it. She just did her objections. And
Okay.
when she did her objections, of course, without the affidavit, it made it. But guess what? There's always a second chance. So I got to reading and reading and reading, and child, I found that answer. And so, of course, that's what she did. And when she appealed it, the appeals court, Fifth District, told her that you're right about the law you're quoting. Everything is right, but you don't have a signed order from the
Yeah.
judge giving us permission.
So a
But
lot
it's
of it is
beautiful.
procedure. A lot
Yeah,
of it is procedural. Yeah.
yeah, it's beautiful though. It's beautiful, and we have to fight when we can't do anything else. But Esquire Thomas, thank you
Yes.
so very much for joining us.
Thank you for
I would
having
not
me.
have it any other way. You have
I haven't
truly
smiled this much all day.
pleased me. And what a beautiful smile you
Oh,
have.
bless your heart.
Okay, and so we've shouted out and they put it in the chat to follow you on IG, and they put your Facebook information.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and
Awesome.
I have it going down there. And so on that note, I'm going to bid you a good evening,
All
and
right.
I'll let you go, and then I'll close out from the chat.
All
Thank
right.
you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, everybody, that was a beautiful show. And so I'm going to get ready to close it out. I'm not going to hold you guys, but let me see. King Kush, I seen and you were talking in the chat that you had to go through some stuff like this too, and how it turned out. I did see that. Okay, King Kush, if you would send me an email, and we can communicate, and I can just tell you the little I know, and then you can go and start researching for yourself. If you don't have money. But like I said, I don't practice law, nor do I give legal advice, but I do research, and I research a lot, and I do a lot. And so I can point you in the right direction, and it may be something real simple that you need to hear. But if you send me an email, okay, fantastic, and then I'll just hit you back because that's something that is doable. You just have to see what it is and where it is. But I'm so happy that you guys joined me today. You could have been anywhere else, but you chose to come and honor my guest. And so I greatly appreciate that. and you honored me, and that really touches my heart. I want to put some respect. Um, you would you make this video? If you've never shared one of my videos, would you make this video one that you would share with 3 people? Because the information that was said in this interview is invaluable. And maybe it can help us as a people to start to have the conversation. And Maria S., I love you so. Thank you for being here, always here for me. And I hollered you and all smiles out in the beginning. And so I don't know if you guys was right at the thing or not, but I just want to let you guys know that I appreciate you all. Gotti, I really appreciate it. You went in there and started dropping those links, and y'all know I don't know how to do any of that, and it made me smile. But I would ask everybody here, if you would just share it with 3 people, and if you can't think of 3, at least one, and maybe, like I said, this can start the conversation, because we as a people, we get afraid. And then we think that if we talk about death, somebody is going to die. But death is inevitable. And like LD, I'm going to go in the twinkling of an eye at 104. That's when my grandmother left. So I would like to do that. But yeah, I think that, and even if you would have this conversation with people that are close to you, or just, tell them what you heard. M. Mac, appreciate the gentleman for sharing his time and information. I dealt with this personally. My dad passed with Alzheimer's and a contested will by numerous people. No lawyer would ever speak to us on it. And yeah, you can also, like I said, I just do a little research and stuff. Anybody can email me. You really can. And you can email me your number, or you can just email me. And, I don't know much, but I research a lot. That's what made me get out here on this site, not to practice law, not to give legal advice, but to share with you what I've done for me and how I did it, and how you too, if you choose to, because we all have a right, an innate right to represent ourselves. Law begins and ends with you. But the way the system is set up today, we have to have someone to represent our situation. In some instances, we can present ourselves. And like LD said, in the state of Texas, when it comes to probate, you have to get an attorney, because you can't represent the estate, and the estate becomes a person. So we learned some valuable information. Uncle Shug, I'm so glad that you're still here. Uh, Beautiful work you're doing. I love it. Keep up the good work. Cookies World, everybody, check out Uncle Shug. Well, most of us know Uncle Shug, but check him out if you haven't checked him out in a while. And Cookies World, she gives the tarot. And what I love about what she does with the tarot, she kind of breaks it down and explains it to you that she's not a fortune teller, and she doesn't have a crystal ball. She has a gift of numbers, and she give you the numbers, and if it applies to you, then do it, whatever applies to you. And if it does not, she said, if it doesn't apply, let it fly. And so I would ask that you go and at least just hear her, one of her shows, because they're excellent. Flip Phone, thank you for coming. I appreciate the love. Hit the like button. And I'm going to get ready to end, because one of the things that I promised my producer, and I do have a producer, she helps me so very much, and keeps me on point, is that on the Tuesdays when I do my interviews, I would keep them to 1 hour. But I just wanted to acknowledge everybody yet again, and I thank whoever sent the Cash App. I greatly appreciate that. It is needed and appreciated. So thank you very much. And on that note, I think I'm going to get ready. I want to just show, if I can, one time. This is something I need to do more. And we're trying to find a way that I can get this advertised, so you can just go and see some of my merchandise. because I think that I would like to be able to sell some of this merchandise. I do masks and I do journals. Like if you want to take this journey and you want to take notes, and you know, these are my T-shirts, and most of you have been in here before, so I just kind of want to remind you of my product. I don't have pictures of my coffee mug and stuff, so I need to upgrade this so that you can see what I have. But I just want to remind you that I do have products, and you can email me to inquire about them if you would like to purchase something. I would greatly appreciate it. And again, I thank everybody for coming. Please make sure you hit that like button, share. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I think you may like it as we go on a journey of growing together. I learned a lot. I could know more, and I can learn from you guys. So I greatly appreciate all the time that you gave me. And on that note, as usual, I'm leaving the tiger's den.
This video was made for education and entertainment purposes only. There's no malice or ill intent from the content creator. So please like, share, and subscribe, and have a great evening. Good night.